Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for A Bear for Punishment, and with me today for more punishment are my good friends Kamden, Spies and Mark Arnold. Say hi!
I hate breakfast in bed.
But I don't want breakfast in bed.
You know, you put Billy Bletcher to shame with your rendition. I don't want breakfast in bed. I hate breakfast in bed. So as mentioned, this is A Bear for Punishment, released on the 20th of October 1951. It had a blue ribbon reissue sometime in 1959. It's the 632nd in the series, and it's directed by, who else? Chuck Jones.
Chuck Jones.
That's it. And of course, this is a very obscure cartoon. No one's ever seen it. I kid, of course. This one's played all the time. So you can find this on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 2 DVD set and on the Platinum Collection Volume 3 Blu-ray set. And I'll have links below to those sets. And if you're one of the few that has not seen this cartoon, well, it's Father's Day. Ma and Junior Bear, they're up to treat Pa Bear to a nice day, but as he says, I don't want breakfast in bed. I hate breakfast in bed. Maybe I should do the whole review like that, just to hear Billy Bletcher's voice, yeah? Get out for trivia. Nah, better not. It sounds awful. In terms of trivia, well, it's the last three Bears short of the Golden Age, and it's actually the only one that doesn't have a narrator in the beginning. And for me, personally, see, this is the main transition point where Chuck's moved forward. He's stopped certain series, and moving forward, it's going to be, aside from his Bugs shorts and his Daffy shorts, you got his Roadrunner shorts, his Pepper Le Pew's, Sam and Ralph's, and of course his wonderful one-shots here and there. So it's kind of a transition period, and this is the last of, I guess, his second lot of characters.
Is there no more QB and Birdie cartoons either?
Nope, that one's finished as well.
Mark Anthony and Pussyfoot?
Yeah, that's going to be another series as well. So yeah, he's stopped the series they started in the early to mid-40s. So we've had our last Hubie and Birdie, we've had our last Inky, last Charlie Dog, and our last three Bears. So now we're going to get...
Wait, they did Inky to this late?
They did one in 1950. So his last one was released then.
Holy moly.
Do you think it's because Stan Freberg started making comedy records and so he didn't have time to do voiceovers anymore?
He did a lot of incidentals, like he did that Spike and Chester. He did Manuel and Fernando, whether it's the dog or the cat.
I thought maybe he's just wrapping them all up because John and Marcia came out the same year, which is his first hit record for Capitol Records. So.
Well, there's also the Goofy Gophers, the free spelling one. He's still doing some work, but I think it's just a case of, well, Roadrunner and Pepper Le Pew, they were very successful. One, they even got the Academy Awards and that sort of stuff. So.
And he was also doing Time for Beanie by this point, the puppet show.
Yeah, now that did change his schedule for sure.
So I'm thinking, he may not have had time. And then B. Benaderet was doing George Bird's The Gracie Allen Show, so she might not have had time. And I don't know what Billy Bletcher was doing.
B. Benaderet, if I remember my June Foray history, which I do, June Foray began around 55, really at Warner Brothers. That's when B. Benaderet started to disappear because she was busy with radio, and she
was also on TV, like I said.
One of those blink if you miss it moments is when you see Pa Bear's bed and you see a book on the floor which says the Kinsey Report, and that's a real book based on human sexual behavior by Alfred Kinsey. Now, why Pa Bear has it? Well, I'll let you guys make up your own mind on that front. One thing I will mention is that whole "Oh, you kid" on the side. And that appears to be a reference to part of a song from 1909, which is titled, I love my wife, but oh, you kid. And that even caused a stir back in the day with one judge even apparently stating that if you said, oh, you kid in public, you should be arrested for disturbing the peace. So it's pretty much how people were against rap music in the 80s, that kind of stuff. So it's going to cause a whole moral panic and blah, 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 that kind of stuff.
A little bit later than this, but rock and roll later.
Yep, exactly. And the whole "Oh, you kid" will also be used quite a bit by Groucho Marx, everyone's favorite comedian, one of my favorites for sure. I absolutely love the guy. Now, let's look at those comics that Junior has. So, Kamden, what do we see in this particular shot?
We see an issue of Looney Tunes with the regular Looney Tunes lettering that Tell Comics would have, and we see Bugs Bunny on the cover of that. We also see Porky Pig. Porky Pig obviously was the biggest star, arguably, even more than Bugs Bunny, of the Looney Tunes comic book franchise. So you see him in his own comic book. You don't see him, but you just see the writing. You also see the Daffy Detective. You see Smut. You see Mystery Man. You see Catcalls. You see the Lone Ranger. You see the Hooded Monster. You see Crime Does Not Pay. And I'm missing a few others because I could not read them.
Yeah, even in high definition, some of them are pretty hard to read. I'm trying to look, I'm zooming in, and it's just, you can't seem to read those. But I'm surprised that it actually says smut on one of them. That could just be a in-joke about how, smutty some of the pulp magazines and comic books were getting. And
I don't even know if the Kinsey report would get past the censors.
Well, it was actually featured in another Looney Tunes short that us three actually covered, Lion's Busy. There was a mention of the Kinsey report in that one. So I'm thinking, well, maybe they just don't know what the Kinsey report was.
Or they just don't pay attention to cartoons. I mean, cartoons get passed all the time.
Or they watched a really grainy print and the detail just wasn't there and they just missed it. Yeah. So many reasons why, but yeah, it actually went past the censor, which is interesting.
So at the beginning of the cartoon, it's kind of interesting. So they show Ma's bed, and it has a sign that says, like, the half of delicatessen, but it has the DEL removed, so it's icatessen. And then Pa's bed is part of an old automobile. I don't know if you saw that. And then on Junior's bed, it has a behavior chart, which has appeared in other cartoons of these three bears.
Now, the story goes that this is based on his own experience about his father hating breakfast and bread. However, the stories Jones told can be debated because we have my good friend from since I was 13 years old, Linda Jones, to talk about it.
And here is that part of that interview. I will say, Bear for Punishment, now that I'm a dad, you can imagine that this short has a whole new meaning, and then the kids love it as well. Yep, every Father's Day. And I'm, of course, replying, I know Father's Day. So I'm no Billy Bletcher, but, I tried.
This is one of those cartoons I remember seeing in a theater at one of the Chuck Jones events. Uh-huh. And it plays, and just like any other cartoon, it always obviously plays better in a theater.
Oh, yeah.
That's what my comment was on the cartoon research article recently on What's Opera Doc. I'm like, the way to see What's Opera Doc is in a theater. That's the best way to see it.
That's the way they were meant to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can attest to that. Because funnily enough, because there's not many opportunities here, unfortunately, but there was one, and it was completely off chance. This is a little aside here, but there is an old theatre here that's been around since 1936. It's called the Astor Theatre here in Melbourne. Beautiful old cinema. And, of course, what do I go and see there? I see RoboCop, because why not? But before RoboCop, they didn't tell us this, but they wanted to show, they were showing a short cartoon. I thought, oh, okay. And what do they show? Alibaba Bunny. And, wow, to see that on the big screen, full audience, they were ready for, RoboCop. And they loved it so much. Everyone was just cheering and laughing. It's definitely an experience.
The first Frizz cartoon I ever saw in a theater was High Diving Hare, which is the great one to see in a theater for a first one. Oh, yeah. And I saw it right below a re-showing of Lucille Ball's film, The Long, Long Trailer.
Well, that would make more sense than my thing with RoboCop.
But yeah, it's really an experience to see it, and that's the right way to see them. Now, the reason I brought you here, Linda, for Bear for Punishment is obviously this cartoon has a personal story meaning before you because the whole film is based on your own experience.
There are two sides to this story. First of all, Chuck loved to tell that I tried to fix his Father's Day breakfast of scrambled eggs when I was 6. And he told that story 150 times at least. And it always got a laugh, and he always loved telling it. I am sorry to say that I don't remember doing that, and I certainly don't remember his hating it. I do remember vividly that he did not like to eat in bed. He did not like any meal in bed. And sometimes my mother liked to eat in bed. My grandmother, my father's mother, liked to eat in bed. In fact, she got up and fixed her own breakfast and then took it back on a tray to eat in bed. So there were people in the family that did like it, but Chuck did not like to eat a meal on a tray in bed. Finding those feelings about having Father's Day breakfast in bed were wider than that one experience that I don't remember. It certainly is possible that my mother and I, or my mother, decided that I should cook him breakfast in bed for Father's Day. I'm not saying that he made it up, but I heard the story so often I almost started to remember it, but I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that it ever happened.
Obviously.
But it doesn't really matter, because the whole point of all of the bear stories was the personalities of the father and mother and son. I know that a lot of people who are familiar with All in the Family thought that they stole the personalities of characters in All in the Family, which was a very popular TV series. The only problem is that it came several years after Bear for Punishment and all of the Looney Tune bear stories. So if anybody plagiarized anything, it wouldn't have been Chuck.
Of course.
But the idea of a small, bad-tempered father and a milquetoast mother and a huge baby, I'm sure has been told other times and other ways. I love Bear for Punishment, and I also think that at least in the top 5 animation sequences of any short cartoon ever, that the Mother's Dance
Oh, yes.
for Father's Day is one of the best pieces of animation ever done, ever. I think it couldn't have been done any better, and it is so wonderful. It just thrills me every time I see it.
When I first met Eric Goldberg, I was talking to him vividly, and he mentioned that Ken Harris told him that they would have done that whole dance sequence in the parking lot of the Warner Studio. They would have acted that whole dance out of the parking lot of the Warner Studio before doing it.
They actually danced it?
Yeah, according to Eric, in the parking lot of the Warner Brothers Studio.
Well, that's interesting. I always grew up thinking that Ben Washam had animated it. I've heard since that Ken Harris did.
Yeah.
In any case, whoever did it is genius.
I'm
Fine.
pretty sure it's
Eric's
Ken
like
Harris, and the only reason is because Ken Harris tended to be the one to do dance animation. That's what I've since learned. But I'll have to defer to people more knowledgeable on that. But I'd say 90-something% sure it's
If
Ken
Eric
Harris.
thinks it was Ken Harris, then it was Ken Harris.
Yeah. Eric's, yeah, that's true.
Eric can recognize any sequence of any cartoon by who did it. But all of those animators were close personal friends of my family. We spent almost every weekend with all of those animators during my childhood, all those years. They were amazing men, all of them men, all of them married. And I got to know their wives very well too. And I was the only child. So in that whole group, Ben Washam and his wife had adopted a son, and there were a couple of others who were there for short periods of time that had children. But I was born during the Depression, and so people were not having children. And then during the war, they didn't have children very much. So I was like the token child, and I was very special.
Didn't you tell me that you went to preschool with Friz Freeling's daughter?
Oh, Sybil and I were in preschool together, yes. It was called the Progressive School. That was what it was called, and it was across the street from the Hollywood Bowl. We spent, I don't know, probably a year and a half.
Now, Anthony, we should both ask about Linda's time working on limited editions, particularly because of the one right behind her.
Yes, indeedy. I'm just admiring that. It's beautiful. Such a
we added the ribbon. It was a Father's Day card, and so we added the ribbon. That's not on the limited edition.
No,
right. A lot of your drawings, which people often have said that Chuck drew rougher than the cartoons were, although that's because there were also cleanup artists at the studio all the time.
Well, they inked them.
Right.
There was an inker. The inker was meant to do a very fine line.
And then the in-betweeners would clean up the drawings too,
they of course, most of the animators were very, very rough,
right?
Especially at Disney. You look at some of the best animators at Disney, and their original drawings were almost indecipherable as far as which line to use. That's why they depended so much on the wonderful inkers who knew what they meant. most of the animators in Chuck's unit did pretty cleaned up drawings, but often they too depended on the great inkers.
Yeah, but I know that Chuck, as well as Abe Levito, who ironically you can always identify his style because it looks very similar to your dad's. They drew a little bit rougher than, like, let's say, Ken Harris, but this is probably one of the most tightly knit cells that I've ever seen your dad did.
The one behind me, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, most of the limited editions are he inked them, he drew them and then he did them in ink with a brush.
I like that look. I really like
it. I do too.
And so most of the limited editions are his line. They're not the same as his pencil drawings, of course.
Right.
But they are his original line. There are some that he was happier with than others, but
Would he have been happy with this one right here?
Oh yeah, he was happy with this one.
I know I'm happy. I absolutely love that.
He was, one of his favorite sayings was that any kind of art, whether it's music or drawing or painting or whatever type of art it is, that you can't finish it. You have to abandon it.
Right. I think he said that about Frizz's cartoons. He said something in his book. He says, every time I look at one of my own films, I see something that I should have done better with it. Every time I look at Frizz films, I see that they're perfect and there's nothing that needs to be changed.
Yes.
I'm sure Frizz didn't feel that they were perfect though.
Yeah.
Yeah. All artists are like that. Just they'll never ever see the work as perfect. There's always something this is gonna change or that's gonna change.
That's why the Mona Lisa was never finished.
Mm-hmm. Oh, exactly right.
Maybe none of Michelangelo's things.
Right.
Yeah. Well, exactly right. But wow.
It's paintings. I know Chuck said this phrase too. He didn't create the phrase, obviously, but a painting's never finished. It's just abandoned.
Right, Anthony. I would like to. I love Australia. All of my visits to Australia have been wonderful, and I appreciate so much your interest and your love of the films, and I wish you well in everything that you're attempting to do, and also as a dad, if your kids want to serve you scrambled eggs in bed, I would suggest that you let them.
Yes. Oh yes, I'll do that. No, I definitely appreciate those wonderful words, and I appreciate you coming on to do this. It's just it's been quite a journey.
You're welcome.
Just overall, so I appreciate it. It was definitely a joy to speak with her. It was absolutely fantastic, and I thank you once again, Kamden, for making that all happen.
Yeah.
So you're making my reviews more respectable.
I'm making your reviews more a spectacle for sure.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of spectacle, in terms of this short, though, wow, I mean, if this has to be the last Three Bears short, what a way to go out.
This is a little bit later in the cartoon, but this just one little look, those little tiny glimpses when they're doing that song and dance routine, and Pa Bear just has this glare like, oh my God, kill me.
Yes,
like,
all those.
He is so embarrassed, and those glances that he gives are funnier than what they're performing.
I love those expressions. Just you think they can't have a huge variety of embarrassment faces, but no. Every time he goes along, he gets worse and worse, and it's just fantastic. And it's just one frame.
Like, he's just looking like he's got red eyes, and he's just like, I want to go on a killing spree right now.
By the way, I believe the Ma Bear dance is done by Ken Harris, who's noted for dancing animation. What I like about the whole animation is how the whole body is moving at such a great pace, with keep up with the dance. But then her face is just the same. It's just that same droopy expression, and that just kills me. It's just fantastic how that worked out. You just got that whole face, and whole body's active. The beginning of this short, I just love the whole setup. Now, those alarm clocks? I actually do have one of those. I don't use it, but I can only just imagine just how jarring it is to wake up to one of them.
How do you turn these blasted things off?
It's such a nice touch that Junior Bear loves his past so much that he sets up so many alarm clocks because he really wants to make sure he gets up for Father's Day. So it's actually kind of sweet
But
In
it's
a way.
also like, why would you do that?
Oh, because he loves his park. He's like, my paw. There's another interesting touch that you guys might have missed. First of all, you do briefly see Mark break the fourth wall. So, you know, the whole thing is like, where he's like, well, what do you want? And then the timing is so perfect where she just looks at the audience for those few seconds, looks back and then says, you know, it's Father's Day. And then the first class heel. And that's, of course, a reference to horseshoes.
About your impression, that was a good one.
Oh. And I got recorded. I actually got a compliment from Kamden, man. It's recorded. Wow. But here's another interesting thing about that one bit in terms of musical cues. When you first see Ma, when she's like, about Henry, you know, that whole thing. And you actually hear a song cue called That Wonderful Mother of Mine.
But Henry.
Well,
Right? And then you hear, What's the Matter with Father?
what do you want?
It's Father's Day, dear.
So we've gone from That Wonderful Mother of Mine to What's the Matter with Father in a close span. How about that, huh?
Cool.
And we also hear, yes, it is cool. And you also hear another musical cue, you know, the whole thing where Junior trips, because now we're going to move forward into the cartoon where Junior trips on a roller skate and he has his breakfast in bed, all right? It's just, you know, on him. we hear the song A Cup of Coffee, a Sandwich, and You playing in the background. So, which is a nice little touch.
Henry.
Breakfast in bed for Paul. I am doing a good thing on Father's Day.
We get also the nice little topper with the Junior Bear just being all helpful, putting the cream on top and just, you know, the whole swirl with the wonderful sound effect. It gets pretty dark this short in one moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking, how'd they get... You're worried about the Kinsey report. I'm like, this got pretty creepy and dark. Where you think he's dead, you know?
Ma, Pa won't talk to me. I nudged him and I nudged him. But he's awfully still.
I nudged him and I nudged him, and I'm like, whoa.
I did notice on this one, they kind of toned down the violence. I think he only hit Junior in the face once.
But can we all agree, though, I think the major highlight for this one is got to be Stan Freberg, as we mentioned before, his voice of Junior Bear. As good as he is in the previous few, he didn't do the first one, that was Kent Rogers, but out of the other ones he did in this one, I think this is his best one. His voice acting, he goes, you know, wait, Pa, I will shave you good. Just that delivery.
Wait, Pa! Wait, Pa! And I will shave you good!
My theory about his Junior Bear voice, he's almost doing a incognitive, stupid version of Cecil. He does sound a little bit like Cecil, just a little bit different. Cecil's kind of like jolly in this, and Junior Bear's kind of big and stupid.
Not lovable. I mean, that whole poem he does, that delivery just kills me every time, you know.
My paw!
Yeah, exactly. My paw!
My Pa by Junior Bear, age 7.5. When the nasty old boogeyman fills me with fears, and my little old pinafore is all wet with tears, and my cute little pug nose is all red from crying, who is it that saves me and keeps me from dying? My Pa! When my little pink cheeks are pale with fright, who is it that lifts me and holds me tight and says, there, there, little man, everything is all right? My Pa.
We finally get his age. We don't actually know his age until now, which is 7.5. And again, he's still wearing, you know, you guys say diapers, we say nappies, and
Yeah, but how do we know he's 7.5 when he can't even spell, when he thinks BAT spells Rhode Island?
yes, that's Gunpowder.
B-A-T, dog.
Gunpowder. The tobacco. I am a good speller, I am. C-A-T, dog. B-A-T, Rhode Island.
I'm a good speller, I am. Hey, Pa, make like this, and I will shave you good. It's just that delivery just gets me every time. For those that don't know, Mel Blanc was the only one that getting credit at the time, and this cartoon has no credit on it because Mel Blanc didn't do a single thing. Not even like a sound of a bee like he did in one of the Three Bears, even though that's his only voice, you know?
Can I say something about Billy Bletcher here? Did Billy Bletcher have a good personality in real life, or was he always...
Well, he's in all those old... He's in a lot of silent comedies. He's in a lot of early comedies, and he's not always the villain either.
Oh, okay.
In fact, he had his own series, I think.
And he was short, similar to what the cartoon depicts him as Pa Bear.
I love that they decide, Happy Father's Day, Dad. We're going to grab you by the legs and start dipping you in flour.
Yes, and we'll make you become the Statue of Liberty. And for some reason, you know, what is it? Ma dressed up as George Washington and Junior as Lincoln. Just... And I like how it just ends right there. I mean, I have criticized some past Looney Tunes shorts where they just seem to end abruptly, but here it works perfectly. I don't think we needed anything further than this, like with Pa getting really angry and, you know, no doubt he'd get angry after this, but yeah.
I think that this is the best Three Bears short. Is that safe to agree on?
Yeah, I think it's the
best. For me, it's a tie, because I still love the honey one, where they're searching for honey.
The Bedeviled Bruin.
I actually don't think I'd ever seen that one until just the other day.
Wow.
Well, I did, but we all know why.
I just want to re-emphasize the expressions are great in this. I mean, that's one thing that Chuck Jones really started mastering by the 1950s is just good facial expressions. And not a lot of dialogue, just a look or a glare or whatever. It's kind of like the Jack Benny in cartoons, you know, it's like, you know, his timing's great.
Yeah.
And, you know, they'll look off to the side or eyes bug out or there's an angry look or a stupid look or something, and no dialogue, no music. It's just the look, you know, and they hold on it and it's perfectly timed.
Yes. By this point, he's become the absolute master of it. And it's kind of handy because as the budgets now will slowly get less and less as the years go on with regards to theatrical cartoons. Not only is it effective in the shorts, but it's also cost effective too. So, as for the review itself, I mean, this one's one of my favorites. From start to finish, just puts a big smile on my face, even though, yes, I see it all the time on Father's Day, so I'm quite familiar with this particular short. So this one gets, I guess, 9.5 out of 10. I adore this short. It's one of my favorites, especially of this year, and one of my favorite shorts of all time, really. So yeah, 9.5 out of 10. Kamden, what would you rate this one?
10.
So Mark's like, uh-oh.
Well, 11. No. Yeah, 9.5. Yeah, it's up there. Yeah.
It's definitely a masterpiece, and, well, we got to say bye to the Three Bears now, sadly, but thankfully now they've all been restored thanks to the new Collector's Choice Blu-ray for the others, and of course the other sets for, I think, Bugs Bunny and Three Bears, and of course this one. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to have breakfast in bed.
I hate breakfast in bed.
I just like my paw.